On this episode of Penguins Postgame, it's the first time the Utah hockey team and the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Utah Mammoth, do battle from PPG Paints Arena. It's also the conclusion, not of the homestand for the Penguins. They still have one more game on Tuesday night against the Edmonton Oilers and Connor McDavid and company. But as Crosby gets closer to Mario's record, where is he at? Was this a win for the Penguins? Was it a loss? Spoiler alert, you might have heard the final prediction on Bill's postgame. Welcome to Penguins postgame. Let's get started. Pens and the Mammoth start right now. Welcome to Sports for Beginners. This is the show where I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Blue Jays, and take you on a journey through the world of sports. From the fan's perspective, here is your host, Scott McGregor. Let's have some fun. Well, folks, welcome in. Welcome in, Penguin fans. Welcome in, Mammoth fans. That's the first time I'm going to be saying that for a while. Welcome in, Mammoth fans. But that's besides the point. Welcome in, Penguins fans. The Pittsburgh Penguins and the Utah Mammoth doing battle for the first time since the team name change from the Utah Hockey Club to the Mammoth. Dylan Guenther and company come into Pittsburgh and they leave with the extra 2 points as the Utah Mammoth win the first matchup of the 2025-2026 regular season series, set to continue and wrap up in Utah, Salt Lake City in the middle of March at 9 p.m. Eastern. But before we get down to business, as we begin our recap here, we got to go ahead and meet our head coaches, officiating crew, and of course, go between the pipes. Before we go between the pipes, let's get you all caught up to speed, as we've often done in these last few recaps we've done. Let's get you all caught up to speed on how the Penguins got to their record they had coming into this showdown with the Mammoth, and of course, how the Mammoth shaped up with their record. Let us start with the Mammoth. Both teams not in action tonight. So how did they get to the current record they had at how did we get to 15, 15, and 3 for Utah and 14, 8, and 8 for the Pittsburgh Penguins? Well, we'll start with the Mammoth, and in particular, we're going to go through their opening of December thus far. They lost 6-3 to the San Jose Sharks after opening a big road trip with losses to the Dallas Stars at the end of November on the 20th, and a loss on Saturday, November 20th, in shutout fashion to the St. Louis Blues. The final score there, 1-0. They lost to the Dallas Stars 4-3 the night before that. Their road trip continued after St. Louis in December with a showdown in San Jose that they lost 6-3 to the Sharks. The Mammoth were able to shut out the Anaheim Ducks 7-0, putting up a touchdown against the Mammoth. The Anaheim Ducks, the Mammoth were. The Vancouver Canucks, also a victory there on December. The final score was 4-1 in favor of the Mammoth. They had a 3-game homestand before battling Pittsburgh. But before that, they wrapped up their long road trip that began at the end of November with a 2 loss to the Calgary Flames. They also lost the first 2 games of that 3-game homestand. First to the LA Kings on Monday, December 8th, 2025. On December 10th, they lost 4-3 to the Florida Panthers and picked up a win against the Seattle Kraken. 5-3 was the final there. They were currently riding a 1-game winning streak heading into the game against Pittsburgh, where, as we mentioned in the final score off the top of the show, they defeated the Penguins 5-4 in overtime. Their next action will be tomorrow night, Tuesday night, against the Boston Bruins. And they'll wrap up that 3-game road trip that they've started on the right note with a victory in Pittsburgh. They'll wrap it up in Motown against the Detroit Red Wings. Then they're heading home for the holidays for just 2 quick games and a quick road game before the holiday break. We'll get to that as well as their home game against Nashville to end 2025 later on. Meanwhile, as for the Pittsburgh Penguins, how did they get to the record they were at going into the game? 14-8-8. Well, most recently, they started off a 3-game road trip to kick off the month of December with victories against the Philadelphia Flyers at 5-1, 3 over the Tampa Bay Lightning. That was on Thursday, December 4th. They have lost to the Dallas Stars in a shootout, 3-2. Your final score there. They also opened up the 5-game homestand with a shootout loss of 4-3 in favor of the Anaheim Ducks, with some late over third period hero in Beckett S, who is able to tie the game before the period ends, ultimately leading to a Leo Carlsson shootout winner. And in the last game before the trade was made official, Tristan Jarry and Sam Poulin going to the Edmonton Oilers for Brett Kulak and Stuart Skinner, as well as a 2029 second-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. Jarry would suit up one final time in a Penguins uniform as he would take on the Montreal Canadiens, and the Penguins ultimately lose that game in regulation 4-2. They'll play Montreal this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, following this game against the Mammoth. But of course, they got Edmonton first with the end of the 5-game homestand. Still looking for a win in this homestand. They've lost every game. And then, of course, they have Ottawa and Toronto coming up as well. Toronto after the back-to-back Montreal game. And then, of course, Chicago and Carolina to wrap up 2025. So, after the 4-2 loss to the Canadiens, the trade was made official. But we have yet to see Stuart Skinner and Brett Kulak in Penguins uniforms. In any case, Penguins fall 6-5 in overtime in the back-to-back last weekend, Saturday, December 13th, 2025, as the Sharks rally back from down 4 in the third period to top the Penguins in overtime. We talked about that before we could get to this one. And before that show, I should say after that show has hit the air, you will hear my recap of the Bills and Patriots game. Then, of course, you'll hear this recap as we recap Utah's 5-4 victory over the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Mammoth beating the Penguins 5-4 final score. All right, so going into the game against the Edmonton Oilers, the Pittsburgh Penguins will enter with a record of 14-8-9. Going into Utah's next game, which will be against the Boston Bruins, they will enter into that game on Tuesday night with a record 16-15-3. They entered this game against Pittsburgh with a record of 15-15-3. Pittsburgh entering the game with a record 14-8-8. The head coach of the Utah Mammoth is Andre Turigani, and the head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins is Dan Muse. Let's start on the Penguins side as we go between the pipes now. Let's go between the pipes before we get into it. As confirmed on Bill's postgame before this game began between the Penguins and the Mammoth. Actually, maybe it was on the previous Penguin postgame, Penguins and the Sharks. Dan Muse confirmed that Stuart Skinner and Brett Kulak were not going to be available for Sunday's contest against the Mammoth. Artur Shilovs, given it was a back-to-back, would be given the day off. So Dan Muse is going with Sergei Marashov to start against the Utah Mammoth. Artur Shilovs in at backup. Pretty good idea considering the fact that Artur Shilov started against the Sharks and Sergei Marashov was in at backup because there's no Tristan Jarry for that game. So pretty good idea there. You got number 1 and number 37 on the bench. Number 1 between the pipes for the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Utah Mammoth and Andre T would counter with number 70 between the pipes, Karel Vijmalka, and number 41 on the bench, Vita Vanek. Vita Vanek would be the backup for the Utah Mammoth. So on the bench for the Penguins, you have Artur Shilov wearing number 37. On the bench for the Utah Mammoth, number 41, you have Vita Vanek. Apologies if I pronounced names wrong. Between the pipes, it was Sergei Marashov versus Karel Vijmelka. Game time was just 8 minutes after 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. in the UK, and 9 p.m. over in France and Sweden. All right, let's get to the hockey game. Here we go. We got a lot to get to. Here we go. Kicking off with our penalty summary. In the first period, penalties went twice to the Utah Mammoth, but only one penalty went to the Pittsburgh Penguins. That went to Ben Kindle at 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Nick Schmaltz of the Utah Mammoth able to draw the penalty on Ben Kindle. A 2-minute minor for hooking. Utah will go to the game's first power play of the evening, of the day, I should say. This was an afternoon game, but anyways, we'll call it of the evening that day. Nate Schmidt was the next person to go to the box. The first person for the Utah Mammoth to go to the box in this game. He received a tripping minor, a 2-minute tripping minor, courtesy of Penguins' Tommy Novak, able to draw the penalty on Nate Schmidt. Penguins get their first power play opportunity of the day. Former Penguin Ian Cole has to serve a 2-minute minor for roughing. The Penguins captain Sidney Crosby able to draw the penalty. That came at 16 minutes, 33 seconds. Let's go to period number 2 for penalties. In period number 2, the penalties taken in this period went to Ville Kovaven, 2 minutes for hooking. Jack McBain able to draw the penalty on Ville Kovaven of the Penguins. Off Utah goes to the second power play of the day for them. They would then go to a third power play, I should say, of the game at 14 minutes and 11 seconds as Connor Clifton gets called 2 minutes interference. And just like calling the hooking penalty on Ben Kindle, Nick Schmaltz able to draw the penalty on Connor Clifton. The Ville Kovaven penalty coming at 9 minutes, 4 seconds. Over in the third, penalties to Pittsburgh again. So Pittsburgh not able to stay out of the penalty box through all 60-minute periods. They take one in the second period, one in the first period, 2 in the second period, and 2 in the third. In the third, this was on a goal scored by the Utah Mammoth. You may remember, if you watched that game against Tampa Bay, in Tampa Bay, Dan Muse challenged for a hand pass, which ultimately led to a Penguins fourth. This time, I'm not entirely sure what his challenge was for, but it was unsuccessful in the third period. And as a result, Ville Kovaven has to serve a bench penalty for delay of game. Unsuccessful challenge, 5 minutes and 35 seconds into the third. Brian Rust would then go to the box later at 10 minutes and 52 seconds as Sean D is able to draw Brian Rust a hooking minor. Sean Drezzy able to draw the Brian Rust 2-minute hooking penalty at 10 minutes and 52 seconds. All right, let's jump to the scoring, shall we? Here we go. First period of play. Justin Brazeau getting things started 48 seconds into the game. First period of play. His 7th goal of the year. Rookie Ben Kindle finds himself the primary assist, his fifth of the year. Rutger McGorty, first assist of the year. 48 seconds into the first period, it's 1-0 Penguins. You already know it. You already probably like it if you've been to the Milkshake Factory. Well, he did it again. Brian Russ strikes again. His 11th goal of the season. Ricard Raquel on the assist. His sixth of the season. Ricard Raquel just returning to action against San Jose. Hadn't played since then. He hadn't played since before that game. It was the San Jose game when he was returning from a 20-game absence, and this is game two that he's back in the action. Sixth assist of the year for Ricard Raquel. Penguins 15 minutes and 21 seconds later, take a 2-0 lead. They will take that lead into the break. Penguins being outshot after first 20 minutes of play, 8-6. I have here on my notes 9-6, but it was actually 8-6 in the shots on goal in favor of the Mammoth. I'll fix that on the break. To period number 2 we go. Ben Kindle, we mentioned him in the penalty summary. We also mentioned him early in the first period of our scoring. Has a goal, has an assist. Why not add a goal? He had an assist in this game early, in the early first period. Why not grab a goal? He grabs the only goal of the period in the second period, which would put Pittsburgh up 3-0. Ben Kindle's eighth goal of the season. Ryan Shea with the primary assist, his 10th of the season. Christopher Letang, 14th assist of the season. Time of the goal, 5 minutes, 40 seconds. So the Penguins are ahead by 3 heading into the final 60 minutes of play, being outshot 11-4 after the second 20 minutes of play. Perhaps I need to make some adjustments to after 40 minutes of play, as well as after 20 minutes of play. I'll do that on the break, and we'll go over it again when we get to the stats. Moving on to the third period scoring. In the third period, of course, by this time it is 3-0 Penguins after 40 minutes of play. In the third, here come the Mammoth. Nate Schmidt, second goal of the year, gets Utah on the board. Nick Schmaltz picking up his 18th assist of the season. JJ Petraka picking up his 12th assist of the season. A minute, 7 seconds into the third, and the Mammoth are on the board. But they wouldn't stop there. Just a few seconds later, Michael Carcone, fifth goal of the year, and he does it all by himself. 3-2 Penguins. Here they come. Penguins better not be taking their feet off the gas pedal. And apparently the Penguins have taken their foot off the gas pedal, because here come the Mammoth. Shortly after that unassisted goal by Michael Carcone, Sean Durezi, his first goal of the year, ties it up at 3, his 5th assist of the season. Mikhail Sergachev, a former Tampa Bay Lightning player, 18th assist of the year for Mikhail Sergachev. 5 minutes and 35 seconds in, we're all tied up. It's 3-3. Utah 3. Pittsburgh 3. After it was 3-0 most of the game, well, 2-0 after 20 minutes of play, and then 3-0 after 40. But Utah didn't stop there. Now the Penguins take that penalty after the unsuccessful challenge on Sean Drezi's goal, and Michael Carcone says, guess what? This is what you get for an unsuccessful challenge. He scores on the power play, PPG for UTA, his 6th goal of the season, 2nd goal of the game. Barrett Hayton with his 3rd assist of the season. And David Butt, his first assist of the year, quickly makes it 4-3 Utah. Danielle Butt, I should say. I'm going to go with DB. Sorry about that if I pronounced it wrong. I thought I did pronounce it correctly, but apparently it doesn't look like I did. That's okay. That's my B. Anyways, the point is it's 4-3 Utah. That's their first lead of the day. It comes on the power play at 7 minutes and 6 seconds. But the Penguins won't let you get their comeback. Well, at least not in regulation, that is. Justin Brazeau strikes again, his 8th goal of the season. Ben Kindle, 6th assist of the year. Eric Carlson, who had the primary assist number 21 of the year. So Kindle comes out of this game with with a goal and 2 assists. Just unfortunately no assist for Justin Brazeau, but wow, interesting how this plays out. We're all tied up after 60 at 4 goals apiece. So 8 goals, I should say, for this game have been scored, 4 to a side. After 60 minutes, Utah outshooting Pittsburgh 17-6. Pittsburgh would finish with 16 shots on goal for the game. However, the Utah Mammoth get one more shot on goal, and this one beats Sergei Marashov. Dylan Guenther, your hero, 42 seconds into overtime, and former Penguin John Marino, 15th assist of the season for him. Dylan Guenther, 15th goal of the year. He is your overtime hero in overtime. All right, 3 stars still to get to. We got to get to the game stats. I also want to take a look at the other action in this not so busy Sunday game, as this was a game on Sunday, December the 14th. Today is Monday, December 15th. We'll also figure out how things transpired for both teams in the shots on goal. But clearly, it looks like the Penguins were being outshot the entire game. The rest of those stats, the play of the game, and 3 stars before we even think about the out-of-town scoreboard, coming up next on Penguins postgame. Plus, only one more game in the NFL in week number 15. That is between the Steelers and the Dolphins. Perhaps I have a prediction. That coming up later. But with that said, we'll take a break. When we come back, stats of the game, 3 stars, play of the game, all coming up when we continue. This is Penguins postgame, and we'll continue in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
Hey everyone, it's Scott McGregor here. Join me weekly right here on Sports for Beginners for weekly episodes, your weekly dive in around sports news surrounding the Toronto Blue Jays, Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Raptors, and more. We'll have guests on a week-to-week basis, and so much more. Lots of great conversations coming. Be sure to subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode. And with that, make sure to like our Facebook page, Sports for Beginners Podcast 87. Just type that into your browser, and you should be sure to find our Facebook page. We'll also provide bonus content. It's going to be a dull moment you'll never want to miss. Check out Sports for Beginners with me weekly for daily news around the sports league, surrounding my favorite sports teams and yours, and so much more. Until then, we'll see you at action time.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Hi, Scott. It's Ali here. I just wanted to mention that I'm really enjoying the show and I'm really enjoying what you're putting together. And I wanted to just say I'm enjoying being a part of it as well. So please keep up the phenomenal work and make sure you guys keep this podcast going because it really suits you well.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
Alrighty, welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to Penguins post-game. Penguins and the Utah Mammoth. Topic of conversation. We got you covered here, getting ready for the Penguins and the Oilers. Should be a really fun game. Also want to let you know that the PWHL recap returns this Wednesday night on Sports for Beginners as we recap the game from Halifax, Nova Scotia between the Montreal Victoire and the Toronto Scepters. How will both teams fare? Where are the standings at? Find out on the next episode of PWHL Recap this week on Sports for Beginners. And of course, speaking of that, our final episode, number 32 of season 4, takes place this week. I'll be recording it on Thursday. Time to be determined, should drop on Friday, ahead of Bills, Browns, and of course, other action in and around the PWHL. It's another PWHL kickoff show with Christmas themed action and so much more. You won't want to miss a moment of the action. We'll keep you in the loop with PWHL as well as many other sports areas as we can. But with that said, let's keep it back to the action on Penguins and Utah. So I haven't really made the updates yet on my notes, but that's okay. The bottom line here is, although Utah outshot Pittsburgh 1-0 in overtime, our final score, as we mentioned, Utah 5, Pittsburgh 4. Utah heavily outshot Pittsburgh 37-16. However, both teams, in a game that saw 64 face-offs, as we get into the game stats here, won 32 of those. They won all 32 of their face-offs out of 64. So we split 32 out of 64 face-offs won by the Utah Mammoth, 32 out of 64 face-offs won by the Pittsburgh Penguins. Both teams, oops, I moved up, my bad. Both teams with a face-off percentage of 50%. Utah went perfect on the PK, going 2 for 2. Penguins 4 for 5 on the PK, as Utah able to score on one of their 5 opportunities on the power play. And of course, Pittsburgh on the power play, non-existent. They go 0 for 2 on the power play. They spent the most minutes in the penalty box in this game, 10 minutes for the Penguins, 4 minutes for the Mammoth. Penguins out-hit the Utah Mammoth 8-9. They also had 7 more blocked shots, I should say 10 more blocked shots than the Utah Mammoth. They finished the game with 17 blocked shots. Utah finishing with 7 blocked shots. Utah with 5 takeaways in this game, Pittsburgh with 4. Pittsburgh also finishing the game with 15 giveaways, 20 giveaways by the Utah Mammoth. And with that, that'll bring us to our 3 stars of the game. Play of the game still to come. But before we go to play of the game, which will likely wrap up this segment, let's go to the 3 stars of the game, and then let's go take a look at the December 14th out-of-town scoreboard. Your 3rd star went to Utah Utah forward, I should say, Dylan Gunther. 1 point, 1 goal, no assists. Your 2nd star went to Penguins forward, number 16, Justin Brazeau. 2 goals, 2 points, no assists. And your 1st star went to Utah forward, Michael Carcombe. 2 goals, 2 points, no assists. The 3 stars brought to you by on Utah and Pittsburgh's radio network and TV network, its respective sponsor. We don't have any sponsors for the 3 stars of the game or the play of the game, brought to you by, again, on Utah or Pittsburgh's radio or TV network, its respective sponsor. But we could get them in the future. We could get them in the future. And with that said, let's go to out-of-town scoreboard. One of the earlier games that had went final before this game went final was a 2-1 win for the Vancouver Canucks over the New Jersey Devils. Goals by Jake DeBrusk on the power play, ZB also on the power play for Vancouver, and Luke Hughes with an even strength goal, the only even strength goal of the game. Elsewhere, the Carolina Hurricanes defeated the Philadelphia Flyers 3-2 in a shootout. As we know, the Penguins fall 5-4 to the Utah Mammoth in overtime. Down in Minneapolis, the Minnesota Wild knock off the Boston Bruins 6-2. Jared Spurgeon with a goal on the power play. Kirill Kaprizov also with a goal. Ryan Hartman, goal on the power play. Quinn Hughes, who was traded to Minnesota from Vancouver, shines in his debut. He has one of their goals. Matt Boldy also with a goal. Kirill Kaprizov had 2 goals in this one. Andrew Peak with 1 goal. And Alex Steeves with a goal by Boston. Over in Edmonton, I should say in Montreal, the Edmonton Oilers fall 4-1 to the Montreal Canadiens. Their next contest will be against the Pittsburgh Penguins, and we will have it for you here on Penguins Postgame. It's never a dull moment here on Sports for Beginners or on the ice and behind the benches, because there's always lots of content coming your way. They fall 4-1 to the Canadiens, the Edmonton Oilers. And over in Seattle, the Buffalo Sabres defeat the Seattle Kraken 3-1. Noah Ostlund, Tage Thompson, Chandler Stevenson, and Zach Benson with the goals for Seattle and Buffalo. Noah Ostlund is I'm going to go with Noah. He is your first goal scorer for Buffalo. Tage Thompson followed it after that. And after a Chandler Stevenson power play goal for Seattle, Zach Benson ends things in the 3rd period with a empty net, I should say, goal. His second goal of the year. All right, time now for the play of the game. That will take us to a break. When we come back after the break, it's time for the game puck of the game, shake of the game, which we'll do right off the jump, and what to expect after this show goes final, which will be coming up after this next break, and it will be a quick 30-second break. Before we get to the break, let's go to the play of the game. All credit to the NHL, the Utah Mammoth, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Again, the play of the game on the Utah Mammoth and the Pittsburgh Penguins radio and TV networks, brought to you by its respective sponsor. And we don't have a sponsor for it, but with that said, if we had someone on here to run the play of the game as a guest, or rather maybe a co-host, we would give them the opportunity to do the play of the game. So, without further ado, since we don't have that happening, I will provide the play of the game. And what's good enough for me as my play of the game, I think I'm going to go with the goal mid-3rd period that forced overtime for Pittsburgh so that they didn't lose in regulation 4-3. And then, of course, Dylan Gunther wins it in overtime, 5-4, our final. But anyways, Justin Brazeau's second goal of the game is good enough for my play of the game. And of course, that was started off by Ben Kindle and Eric Carlson. Here are the men who called it on Sportsnet. Here are the men who called it on Sportsnet Pittsburgh. I often listen to the radio network, but given there was a football game and I was more focused on that, as I've mentioned many times before, I'm a Penguins fan, but I'm also a Buffalo Bills football fan. So apologies for that if I couldn't join the game, but it looked like it was a pretty good game right off the jump. So I was following it with some notes as I could, as closely as I could, but I didn't catch the game. I'd also like to thank our host on the ice and behind the benches, Thomas, who did have the Penguins radio network playing when I was coming to record my Bills post game show. So I did catch a little bit of the action. Maybe the game I remember. The game wasn't over by then. It had only just started, so it wasn't over before I started my post game show for the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots. But anyways, here are the men on the call of our play of the game. Brazo's tip-in goal, his second of the game.
Shots did themselves. As you mentioned, that line is the one line that's at their legs, and this is one of the better offensive zone shifts for the Penguins in this game. What a tip by Brazo. That's early season, pre-injury Brazo. Good play down low, then he gets to the front of the net, sets up shop, and a tip on his backhand side. That's not an easy deflection.
And you can actually see here the reaction. Credit to the Colby Armstrong boy and Josh Getzoff. I believe that's Colby and Josh on the call on Penguins postgame, not on Penguins postgame, on Sportsnet Pittsburgh. But you could see the reaction here. I'm going to come back a little bit here to the bench reveal here. It's a nice little goal by Justin Brazo, but watch the bench reaction here. They're looking on, and then it's time to celebrate. Goals in. There you go. And I can see there Crosby is on Crosby, the captain there, is on the bench there. Yeah, I think that's him. Anyways, that is good enough for our play of the game. And with that, we're going to take a break. When we come back, time for the shake of the game puck of the game. Who's next for Utah? Who's next for Pittsburgh? What's next for this podcast? Who's coming up next time on Penguins postgame? All of that will be revealed. Plus, a little sneak peek at Monday's action, getting set to go in under an hour from now. All 5 games coming up when we return to Penguins postgame. Stick with us. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
All right, thank you very much. Our friends over at Sienna T Radio want to issue a quick Sienna T Radio breaking news story for you here in terms of programming. In case you may not be aware, the Sienna T Radio Cosmopolitan Culture Club has been postponed until this Friday, December the 19th. They will both be taking off around that timeline. Sienna T Radio brought this up on December the 12th, which was just a few days ago. And Sienna wrote on her website, Sienna T Radio, in blog that if you have the newsletter, you'll get it. She wrote, "This week's Cosmopolitan Culture Club has been postponed until Friday, December 19th, right after the Song Bank. Hello, Sienna T Radio listeners. This is just a heads up that this week's Cosmopolitan Culture Club will air next Friday, December 19th. That's this Friday, as I am feeling under the weather and will not be able to host live this evening." So this was last Friday on December the 12th. So, Sienna, I understand you were not able to host the show, and I also understand why the Cosmopolitan Culture Club, which would have been on the 11th, actually, not the 12th, but the 11th, would have to get postponed. And then she said, however, fear not, because I have a special radio drama that will be airing in its place. Canadian-born Rich Little will present his one-man dramatization of Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, of which he will play the voices of all the characters. I can guarantee with 100% certainty that this special radio drama will give you a good chuckle or two. I look forward to being back with you next week for not one, but two shows back to back on Friday, December 19th. 2025, when I host both the Song Bank and the Cosmopolitan Culture Club. There's lots of fun to be had on CNT Radio. You won't want to miss any of it. In order to tune into the shows and join in on all the fun, please click the following link. This is also a notice. Once on the page, click listen, click the listen live link. The stream will open 5 minutes prior to the showtime, and the fun will begin. And now the rest of the weekend programming lineup. Well, that was the weekend for Saturday, December 13th, and I'm looking forward to Sienna. Maybe I will be able to join in on the action this week on Friday, especially maybe just for the Song Bank. I don't know about the Cosmopolitan Culture Club, but I'll definitely try to make the Song Bank if I can. But it's like a Friday doubleheader before the holidays. We'll see how it all pans out. But do make sure you go check that out. And with that being said, let's get right back to action, recapping Penguins and the Mammoth. All right. So let's get to our shake of the game, inspired by the good friends and, of course, former Pittsburgh Penguin, Jake Gensel, who made the segment inspiration possible, providing you the official milkshake of the Pittsburgh Penguins. As you remember, Penguins fans, when Jake Gensel was a Penguin, anytime Jake scored, you receive half off Jake Shakes the next day at the Milkshake Factory in Pittsburgh. The same can be said for Brian Rust. And speaking of Rusty, he did score against the Mammoth. So, you know what that means. Time to head to the Milkshake Factory for half off Rusty Shakes, providing you the official milkshake of the Pittsburgh Penguins in Pittsburgh. Of course, that also means prior to Oilers Penguins, you could go to the Milkshake Factory and grab yourself a Rusty Shake. But we'll talk about the Oilers and the Penguins coming up in just a few minutes. Let's get to who's going to get the honor. All right, getting the honor for the Utah Mammoth, that is going to go to the puck stopper, Karel Vejmelka. Karel Vejmelka going to get the start there for, I should say, going to get us started here on the shake of the game for the Utah Mammoth. Karel Vejmelka with 12 on 16 shots, 4 goals. Of those 16 shots were let in, all at even strength. Save percentage of .750. Time on the ice of 60 minutes and 16 seconds. Honorable mention to Utah defenseman Mikhail Sergachev, Ian Cole, and former Penguin Ole Mata. Ole Mata has been reunited with Ian Cole and John Marino. All three of those men, former Penguins. We'll get to the game puck of the game for the Utah Mammoth in a second. But before we do, let's get to the Penguins shake of the game. Reminder that the honor for the shake of the game went to Karel Vejmelka. Karel Vejmelka. There we go. Melka. There we go. I thought I got that right. Well, I did have it right a couple of times. That's okay. Karel Vejmelka. There we go, with the honor of the shake of the game. And we're going to do that for the shake of the game for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Not a really good game by Sergei Marashov, but hey, he was definitely the busier goaltender. 31 saves on 36 shots, 5 goals given up. 4 at even strength, 1 on the power play. 60 minutes and 6 seconds total ice time. Sergei Marashov's save percentage was .861. 861 save percentage. Again, to mention his time on the ice, 60 minutes and 6 seconds. He stopped 31 of Utah's 36 shots. 5 of them were goals, 4 at even strength, including the game winner in overtime, and 1 in being shorthanded, as he gave up the only Utah power play goal of the game. Honorable mentions to Christopher Letang, Ryan Shea, Connor Clifton, Sidney Crosby, and Ben Kindle. All right, time now for the game puck of the game. We're going to start on the home side. And that is going to go to, it's kind of hard for me to pick here. I don't know. Should I just give it to Sergei Marashov again? You know what? I'm going to go ahead and give it to goal scorer Justin Brazeau. So Justin Brazeau gets the game puck of the game. Sergei Marashov going to get the shake of the game for the Pittsburgh Penguins. For the Utah Mammoth, the shake of the game went to Karel Vejmelka. And our game puck of the game is going to go to the overtime hero, Dylan Guenther. So there you have it. On the shake of the game, we've got the goal stoppers, Sergei Marashov for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Shake of the game for the Utah Mammoth, Karel Vejmelka. I'll figure out how to say your name. Apologies for the goal stoppers family of the Utah Mammoth if I'm pronouncing the name wrong. I'm trying to get it right as we go along. And of course, Dylan Guenther with the game puck for the Utah Mammoth, and that belongs on the Penguin side to Justin Brazeau. So the Penguins still without a win in this 5-game homestand. As we start to wrap it up here, want to let you know that coming up in about under an hour from now, as it is 5:26 p.m. Eastern, we got some great hockey action, as there are 5 games on the slate. 2 of them start at 7 p.m. Eastern, and they are between the New York Rangers, who will be hosting the Anaheim Ducks, and the Florida Panthers are visiting the Tampa Bay Lightning. Coming up as the game on Prime, the Winnipeg Jets will host the Ottawa Senators at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, and the 8 p.m. games on this Monday night. The Dallas Stars hosting the LA Kings. The Dallas Stars hosting the LA Kings visiting the Dallas Stars. There we go. Now I got the Dallas Stars part up there. There we go. I'm not sure why it kept changing, but that's okay. And the other 8 p.m. game is the St. Louis Blues hosting the Nashville Predators. Those are on the east side. On the central side, they are at 7 p.m. Eastern. The 8 p.m. games on the east side between LA, Dallas, Nashville, and St. Louis. On the central side for the Winnipeg, Ottawa game, that is at 6:30 p.m. Central, as well as 6 p.m. Central for the games featuring the Rangers and the Ducks and the Lightning and the Panthers. Looking forward to that action. All right. If you're not into that, and especially if you're a Canadian fan, the Toronto Raptors, who unfortunately dropped out of the NBA Cup Finals after quite a run, they are in action tonight. They will take on the Miami Heat at 7:30 Eastern. Also on the slate on this Monday, the Detroit Pistons will battle the Boston Celtics on the court. The Dallas Mavericks taking on the Utah Jazz in Utah, in Salt Lake City. That's at 9 p.m. Eastern. Raptors and the Heat at 7:30 p.m. Pistons and the Celtics at 7 p.m. Rockets and the Nuggets at 9 p.m. at 9:30 p.m. And at 10:30 p.m. it's the Memphis Grizzlies and the Los Angeles Clippers. That ought to be a good showing. All right, so who's next? We talked about it off the top of the show, but now it's that time. Who's next? Let's start with the Mammoth. Up next for the Utah Mammoth, they will go into a Tuesday night showdown against the Boston Bruins at a record of 16, 15, and 3. against the 19-14-0 Boston Bruins in Boston. As their 3-game road trip continues, it will wrap up in the Motor City on Wednesday night when they battle the Detroit Red Wings. Currently, as we speak, the Red Wings record is 18-12-3 heading into that matchup. Then 2 home games for the Utah Mammoth, but both of those games on the road. PM Eastern, PM Central, 4 PM Pacific, 5 PM Mountain. And of course, for that Detroit game, 7:30 PM Eastern, 6:30 PM Central, 4:30 PM Pacific, 5:30 PM Mountain for that Wednesday game. The game against the New Jersey Devils, which opens up their 2-game homestand, is at 9 PM Eastern, 8 PM Central, 6 PM Pacific, 7, and that is at home at the Delta Center against the New Jersey Devils. They will then host the Winnipeg Jets on Sunday, this coming Sunday, December the 21st, 2025, at 7 PM Eastern, 6 PM Central, 4 PM Pacific, 5 PM Mountain, and wrap it up before the holiday break with a 9 PM Eastern, 8 PM Central, 6 PM Pacific, 7 PM Mountain Time puck drop against Nathan MacKinnon and the Colorado Avalanche. So there you have it. You've got Boston, Detroit, New Jersey, and Winnipeg, and Colorado, your next 5 for the Utah Mammoth. And then, of course, you have Nashville after the Christmas holidays. But the next 5 for the Mammoth are Boston, Detroit, Tuesday and Wednesday night. They will face the Devils on Friday night. The Winnipeg Jets on Sunday night, and then they face Nathan MacKinnon and the Colorado Avalanche in Denver in the Miles City just before Christmas. For the Penguins, leading up to Christmas, they will wrap up their 5-game homestand, trying to wrap it up on a high note and hopefully grabbing a win as they face off against Connor McDavid and the Oilers at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central, 4:30 Pacific, 5:30 PM Mountain. Then Pittsburgh hits the road to Ottawa for a 2-game road trip, wrapping up with a home-and-home series as they will take on the Ottawa Senators on Thursday night, December 16th, 2025 at 7 PM Eastern, 6 PM Central, 4 PM Pacific, 5 PM Mountain. Same time for the games Saturday and Sunday against the Montreal Canadiens, both in Pittsburgh and in Montreal this Saturday night. And to round out the next 5, the game before Christmas will be the final game of the season and in the season series between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Game time 4 PM Eastern, 3 PM Central, 1 PM Pacific, 2 PM Mountain. So the next 5 for the Penguins, wrapping up the 5-game homestand against the Oilers on Tuesday night, hitting the road to Ottawa for a game on Thursday night. Then they hit the road to Montreal for a Saturday night clash with the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal and Pittsburgh head back to Pittsburgh to close out their series of 2025-2026. Then the Penguins cross the border to go north of the border one last time, 5/2026, as they look to avoid being swept by the Toronto Maple Leafs the night before Christmas. Specifically, the night before Christmas Eve. Should be a fun way to Christmas. That is going to do it for us here on Penguins Postgame. Thank you so much for being with us. Click like if you like what you're listening to. Click subscribe if you really like it. Tell all of your friends. The Penguins look to get back in the win column as they prepare to face old friend Tristan Jarry and face a former foe in the name of Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. McDavid, Draisaitl, and the Oilers battle Crosby, Malkin, and Letang and the Penguins on the next episode of Penguins Postgame. We will have it for you before our PWHL recap continues as it returns from the international break that is currently going on. That is where I will be recapping the game in TakeOver Nation, the Toronto Scepters, and the Montreal Victoire. Hope you could join us for that, as well as join us for Oilers, Penguins, or what I would like to call on Penguins Postgame, Crosby versus McDavid. It's time to find out how the first meeting of the 2020 season between Crosby and McDavid goes down, and it will go down tomorrow night from inside of PPG Paints Arena. Look forward to talking to you then. That is it for us, but there's lots of sports for beginners to come. Penguins and Oilers, plus Scepters and Victoire, plus Season 4 of the podcast wraps up in holiday fashion. And are the Miami Dolphins' hopes of making the NFL playoffs dwindling? Their game next week, as well as this week, which is against the Steelers, all coming up on Penguins on Sports for Beginners. Next week, in Week 16, the Dolphins go head-to-head with the Cincinnati Bengals. But first, can they get back to 500 as they battle the Steelers? Next week, they battle the Bengals. That recap, the Steeler recap, and of course, on Buffalo's side, the recap of Bills-Browns, all coming up on Sports for Beginners. Can the Dolphins get back to 500 with a win against the Steelers? Only time will tell. As for Penguins and the Mammoth, we'll do this all again in mid-March. Puck drops at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and p.m. Mountain from the Delta Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. Up next for Penguins postgame, Penguins, Oilers, Crosby, McDavid. We'll talk to you then. As Mike Lang always says, at the end of every Penguins victory, we do it win or lose. I'm going to use my spin on his line here. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Brazeau has just left the building. Of course, Mike always uses the line. He always uses the line, ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building. Rest in peace, Mike Lang. And I'll continue to carry on your legacy by bringing up so many of the great lines you have come up with since becoming a broadcaster in Pittsburgh. So one more time, just for the road, ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building. The Penguins fall 5-4 to the Utah Mammoth, but now they got to get ready for the Oilers and old friend Tristan Jarry. And of course, they got to get ready for Connor McDavid. It'll be interesting to see what happens. We'll break it down for you on Penguins postgame next time. Until then, let's go Pens. Thank you so much for listening to Sports for Beginners. If you would like to learn more about the show, you can visit the podcast Facebook page or visit the official website. You can also send us an email at sportsforbeginnerspodcast8231@gmail.com. As we always remind you, it is not goodbye, it is until next time.